Hey, welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur CFO Show. We call it the ECFO Show, the podcast where we have candid conversations around the topics that entrepreneurs need to discuss in order to win. Our goal is to close the wealth gap one business at a time. So, hey, thank you for joining us. My name is Perry Jeffries. I'm your Entrepreneur CFO, and we thank you for taking the time to jump in and listen to us today. So before we get started, I want to share a very quick thought of the day. And the thought of the day is this, and I know I once heard this um, many years ago, and I'm trying to remember what age it was, but I adopted it myself to kind of tie in today's talk. And if this is what I have. So thought of the day is, if a 10-year-old cannot understand it, then it is not clear. So let me say that again. If a 10-year-old cannot understand it, then it is not clear. And you may be wondering, like, Perry, what are you talking about? Well, I'm going to share this experience that I had this past weekend with my basketball team and be able to tie this all together here. But to kind of preface it and kind of level set it so you understand where we're going to go with this thing. A lot of times we overcomplicate things, right? We may overcomplicate what we do when somebody asks what we do. We may overcomplicate, our advice to clients as entrepreneurs. We may overcomplicate our advice, when it comes to dealing with finances or, any business for that matter. So kind of think about that for a second, y'all, as you do a little introspect here and think about your business. If somebody asks you what you did, would a 10-year-old be able to understand what you do? Think about that. If a 10-year-old can't understand what you do, then it's not clear. Because guess what? As adults, we're just 10-year-olds who, got a couple more years added to it. But ultimately, we're children. And not to disrespect anybody, but just to kind of think about it in those terms, that if a 10-year-old can't really understand what you're saying or get the point, then it's probably not clear. So think about that for a second when you're advising your clients or you're coaching your clients, if you're a business coach or coach of that matter. And that kind of ties into where the story is going to go. So let me tell you the quick story. Many may or may not know, I have twin daughters, and my daughters are 11 years old, and they absolutely love basketball. They've been playing basketball since they've been in the first grade. I've had the opportunity to coach them first grade, third grade, fourth, and now fifth. And this season has been a tough season for us, in the midst of, COVID and the pandemic and the different protocols and not being able to practice and games being canceled and things of that nature. It's been a tough season just for the team in general. But I love my girls to death. We have not just my daughters, but also two of the girls on the team, because we've been together now for 2 years. And we had 3 games this past weekend, and tough games. We played against some really good teams. And my girls know that I'm not concerned with what the score says. Now, I'm an athlete, and I have that natural competitive, nature. But at this age, we want to teach the girls how to play, right? And whether or not regardless of what the score is, we want to see them get better game after game, right? That's what it's supposed to be about at this age. It's not about winning and losing. It's about, are they having fun? Are they starting to love the game, right? So in our last game, we probably had our worst showing in the 2 years that we've been together. Just things weren't clicking. We weren't hustling. We didn't have that tenacity that we normally have. And, the girls were getting frustrated. You can see out on the court, they're, bickering at each other. Coaches, we're getting frustrated. It's like, what in the world is going on, right? And we had a timeout. And I asked the girls, I said, hey, we're getting our butts kicked. I got a question for you. Do you just want to show up and play, or do you want to compete? Right. And I kind of left it at that with the girls, and they're like, we want to compete. Right. So I think they got it. Right. And kind of in that heated moment, hey, do you just want to show up and play? We can just show up and play and have a good time with our friends and get out here and run around and, do all of that. Or do we want to get out here and compete? So the girls looked me in the eye and they said, we want to compete. And, for that last quarter, last couple minutes in the quarter, I saw my team that I was used to seeing, the team that was just gritty and got after it, diving on the floor, hustling, you know what I'm saying? And this is a game where we got beat, you know what I'm saying? The team had scored 20 plus points, I think, before we even scored our first point. So it was just a tough showing. And it wasn't that the team was that much better, but we were just off that day. It was just one of those days. And we all have them. We all have them in sports. We all have them in business, right? Well, the next morning, that game was on Sunday. I woke up with my team heavy on my heart. And, these are 10, 11-year-old girls, so they may completely forgot about the game, right? But I woke up thinking about the game, went to bed thinking about the game, woke up thinking about the game. And, I had to ask myself, I was like, did they understand what I meant by, do you just want to play or do you want to compete? And it got me thinking. I was like, if I was talking to a group of adults, would they have understood that? And what I was trying to share with the girls in that statement, in that heated moment, wasn't, hey, we need to win this game. But, our major competition isn't the team that we see out there. Our competition is our previous self, right? What was frustrating wasn't that we were losing to this team, because they were very well coached, very well disciplined. It wasn't that we were just losing to the team and the score said 20-0. What was frustrating for me as a coach is that I saw my team out there and it wasn't the team that I saw the day before, the week before. It's almost like we went back, right? So that's where the frustration was, because I know, hey, I know how we hustle. I know how we fight. I know how we play. And we just weren't doing that, So I share, as I got to thinking about it, I said, I probably need to explain to them a little bit better what I mean by compete. The competition isn't the people on the court. The competition is, are you going to play a little bit better today than you did the day before or the week before? So something I shared with the girls at the very beginning of the season was, hey, let's focus on getting at least 1% better every day. And these are the things you need to do to get 1% better. So that's where the frustration was. It's like my team wasn't getting 1% better. They got like 10%, worse. So that was the frustration I had as a coach. So, I sent the team a video to tell them like, hey, coach still love you. I'm not disappointed in the score. I'm not disappointed in the loss. I'm disappointed, seeing that we didn't play as hard as we normally play. Right. So I thought about that and I said, these are major business lessons in this. Right. So just a hard pause. The first business lesson as entrepreneurs is so easy for us to see what the other business is doing. Oh, these people are on social media and they're making, 6 figures a day. They're making 7 figures a year. And then we kind of look at what we're doing and we're like, man, we looking up at the scoreboard like, man, they're making 7 figures a month. And, I'm making, 5 figures or 4 figures a month, right? Man, I suck. No, you're not competing with them. You're competing with yourself. Like you're competing with, hey, did I go and make 4 figures this month? And then did I get to, mid 4 figures? Did I go to 5? That's the competition. That's where you need to focus on competing is, are you getting better personally? Because in team sports, the team gets better as each person on the team gets a little bit better, right? So that's one of the first business lessons was like, hey, don't compete with these people that you see on social media, because most of them ain't telling you the full story anyway, right? The business is doing 7 figures, but they owe taxes and they're almost broke and they're like, 30, 60 days from having to close the door. So don't compete with that because you don't know the whole story. But don't get frustrated when you see other people's scores. Focus on your scores, right? So that's the first business lesson. The other lesson that we had in here was, after the losses this weekend, I believe, and anybody who knows me know that I believe that everything rises and falls with leadership. Now, that's not my slogan. That's from John Maxwell, from his book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. But I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly, that everything rises and falls with leadership. So if we have a losing streak, which we're on right now, I reflect on myself and say, okay, Perry, you're the leader. What is it that you need to be doing? Because I shared with the girls, hey, it wasn't y'all got your butt kicks. We got our butt kicked, coaches included, right? So I'm thinking like, okay, as a leader, what can I do? So the first thing as a leader, I reached out to another coach who's having a pretty good season and said, hey, man, I need some help. Right. You know what I'm saying? What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? I sat and watch your girls play and I love what you guys are doing. And we just had that candid conversation, and immediately into the conversation, it was like, a lightning bolt, you know what I'm saying, struck me in the head, ton of bricks. And it's like, man, I got away from what I actually preach and coach, is always focusing on the fundamentals. So here's the deal, y'all. Went kind of with the craziness of the season, I was teaching when I got back to being able to coach after breaking my leg and things of that nature. I was teaching basketball principles, right? So I was teaching, hey, after you pass, cut. After you set a screen, roll. After when you catch the ball, triple threat, right? And got back and we're driving into these principles, and we're seeing the girls, kind of understanding the principles, right? But as I was talking to the other coach, what he shared was, at this young of an age, you can't just teach the principles. You want to teach the principles, but you also have to give them a system, because they're not at the point now where they can make those decisions, those split decisions of, oh, okay, let me do this now, or this happened, let me do this now. You actually have to put them in a position to win and make the game easier for them. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I forget that? Right? Because that's what I preach from a financial standpoint when working with, my clients as their CFO, is this is the system. And it got me laughing and thinking, because as we're putting in, the financial systems for clients, it amazes me how they completely skip the basics and immediately go to want to talk about the advanced stuff. They want to talk about financial planning and investing and whatnot. And it's like, well, hold on. The system requires you to do this first. Just transfer this money first. Just make this money movement on the 10th and 25th. And you'd be surprised how many people just completely disregard that and want to go to the advanced stuff. So it hit me like a ton of bricks as soon as we had it. It's like, man, it's the system. So it got me thinking like, hey, from a business standpoint, you want to teach the fundamentals. But what are truly the fundamentals? It's the IQ, right? Are we improving the team's IQ, their basketball IQ? Do they know what a good shot is? Do they know where they're supposed to be on the floor? Do they know what, needs to happen after a shot is like, are they understanding the fundamentals? That's called IQ. It's the same way in business. Do you have good financial IQ? We call that financial intelligence. One of the reasons your business may be struggling is because you have not developed the fundamentals. You do not have the financial IQ to scale a business. And that's no knock on you as an entrepreneur. I mean, we know 80% of businesses are failing. So it's probably 80% of businesses plus need help in that financial IQ or financial intelligence space. So that's the first thing I thought about. It's like, hey, if I set my girls, my team in a room individually and said, hey, show me what a good shot looks like. Can they do that? Hey, show me the spacing on the floor where every girl is supposed to be. Can they do that? Hey, tell me what happens if, can they articulate that? If they can't articulate it, again, going back to our thought of the day, if a 10-year-old doesn't understand it, then you need to go back and make sure you can explain it so that the 10-year-old can explain it back to you, right? Then the principles, so the stuff that I've been teaching, which is, hey, when you do this, do this. When you do this, do that, right? But we got to have those. We got to have those fundamentals. Then that IQ has to be in place. So you got your IQ, which for business is financial intelligence, and then you have certain business principles, right? Business principles that you have to adhere to. So maybe that's supply and demand, or return on ROI, return on investing, things of that nature, right? But you gotta have a system. So you have to improve the IQ. You have to have some principles that you follow. Like, hey, these are the principles. A principle in business may be, hey, don't spend more than what you have. How many people ain't following that? I mean, this is a simple principle, but how many people are not following that? Because how many businesses or how many people are filing bankruptcy because they're not following this one simple principle. So the principle enough is not going to put you in a position to win. But if you're following that principle within a system that says, hey, this is how you don't overspend. Put this money here, and now you only have, maybe this pocket of money available, so you can't overspend, right? So you gotta have a system, and that's when everything clicked for me. It's like, man, we haven't really taught the babies a system. We taught the team, the girls, principles, but we haven't given them a system to be able to use those principles in the system and see that, right? And then the other piece is, evaluation. We can't always look at, as a basketball team, the scoreboard. and be like, hey, let's evaluate how we did. Did we win or lose, right? Because again, that's like looking at other teams or other businesses and being like, well, we made 100,000 this year, but man, Perry's business made 1 million. Psh, man, we're not doing good. He's doing 1 million. We're doing 100,000. No, 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 no. We have to be able to evaluate what we did good. So like, how many turnovers did we have, right? How many rebounds did the other team have? Like, being able to evaluate those things so that we can go back and make those adjustments, right? So the lessons from the girls basketball, one, I still believe everything rises and falls with leadership. So I take any loss we have to heart. Right, my wife knows this. May not show it to the team as much, but I come home and she knows I'm up at night and I'm tossing and turning, thinking about basketball, because my goal is to help these girls understand the game, have the same love for the game that I had, right? But also to put them in a position to use the game to build, outside of the game. So like, I believe sports are just a great playground for life lessons, right? So again, these are the lessons that I took away, and we're going to close this up and make sure that you guys hear this, right? First, competition. Your competition is you. It's not the other team. Your competition is you. Yeah, you may be playing against the other team, but what you're doing is trying to take, improve your best against their best, and and be able to push, because you can't test how good you're getting until you up against something, right? But who you're truly competing against is yourself, right? In business and in sports. Second thing is IQ. If you don't have financial intelligence in your business, that's the first place you need to start. It's not marketing, it's not strategy. If you don't understand the basic fundamentals of running business, if you don't understand profit and loss, if you don't understand how to pay yourself, if you don't understand, what's a good, investment versus a bad investment, or hey, if you don't understand, you have to understand the fundamentals of business before you start running. So that's your IQ, your business IQ. So you need to make sure, and you can get that via books, you can get that via coaching, however you want to go and get that whole piece, right? Principles. So there are some certain principles that you have to adhere to, right? But you can't just run your business off of those principles, because again, we know the principle of not going in debt. Don't spend more than what you have. Well, if we all know that principle, but if we all followed it, none of us would be in debt. Businesses wouldn't be going bankrupt, right? So again, it's a principle, but that principle is only going to work within the system. And you have to have a system. People hear me quote this all the time, that a system allows ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results. So what is your system? What is put in place to stop you from, if we use the same analogy of overspending, what's in place to put you in there, right? Because now, and I think about the system with the girls basketball, is what system do I need to put in place for them not to take bad shots? What system do I need to put in place to allow them to rebound? What system do I need to put in place to allow them to make the right pass, right? That's on me as a coach or me as a CFO. What my client says, what system do I put in place to help this client or help this player not make these bad decisions and put them in a position to win? And then also to evaluate, are you evaluating the right numbers? Are we looking at the right numbers and evaluating those numbers at the end of the day? So I had to share this with you, y'all. Because, first of all, I'm a former athlete, absolutely love basketball and love coaching and love, teaching these life lessons through basketball. But as you're coaching, you also have to get coached as well. And that's why I reached out to another coach who I saw was like, man, you guys are doing well. What are you doing? Right? Because as a leader, that's my job. Is if I'm going to lead, I have to be able to lead from a position. I have to be a good follower in order to be a good leader. Let that drop, because somebody didn't hear that. You have to be a good follower. You have to know how to follow first before you can lead. Right? So what we're banking on is the conversation I had with the other coach is now going to translate over to what I give our girls, and they continue to grow. And now we're able to see that growth as we kind of come to the end of our season, right? So that's what we have, y'all. I hope that was valuable. share this if it was, share this to your, share this to your athletic team, share it to your business, relationships, or, your clients and whatnot. And if you're in a position of leadership, understand that I believe you got to first focus on IQ, the fundamentals, right? Principles, you need those, but you got to have a system, in order for this thing to work, because we all are children who just grew up. And the same way you have to give these kids guidelines when you're raising them and coaching them and whatnot, and within that system, you need to do the same thing with yourselves, because ultimately we're just 10-year-olds who just grew up and added some more years to, to the age, if you will. And then evaluation. What are you actually evaluating? So that's it, y'all. Perry Jeffries here. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Entrepreneur CFO Show. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you visit our website, perryjeffries.com/free resources. So you can go get plugged into our entrepreneur ecosystem Facebook community, get access to our YouTube videos, a ton of value on there for you guys at no cost to you. We do have a monthly Profit First Masterclass. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for a system to put in place for your finances, and and continue to share this episode with other entrepreneurs and other coaches out there, so we can continue to grow and build as an ecosystem, as a community. All right, Perry Jeffries here, y'all. Peace.